Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Guy Barretta, a seasoned COO and growth strategist in the real estate world. He's worked with companies like EXIT Realty New England and Coldwell Banker, helping them scale operations and grow teams across multiple states. Today we're diving into what's driving success behind the scenes in real estate and how he approaches leadership and growth. Guy, thanks so much for jumping on this call. Where are you calling from today?
I am in New Jersey. I am calling from beautiful New Jersey. Not so beautiful today, very cloudy and rainy. It's kind of been our MO for the last week, but hoping for some spring weather next week.
That's about the same here in Minnesota, just cloudy and cold.
We don't have a spring anymore. Let's call it what it
No,
is. There's no such
seriously,
thing.
yeah. Well, I saw that you were recently named CEO at Anything Real Estate and also continue to play a major role with Exit Realty New England. So that's really impressive. And how are you juggling the two right now?
So that's a great question. So in 23, I left a brokerage where I was the COO of just a standard brokerage in the Hudson Valley of New York, and started a fractional consulting business or fractional COO business. And in that role, I started working with Exit Realty at the regional level to help them with their growth and aspirational strategies for their region, which includes Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont. Additionally, I started working with an amazing small brokerage as their fractional COO in Georgia. And same thing, we're looking at opportunities for growth and bringing the Anything Real Estate name out to more people in the markets that they serve.
Awesome. Yeah, and so what is that what's a typical day look like for you? You have both of those jobs that you have to juggle. So how does that correlate and what are you doing in a typical day to organize and grow with them?
So I usually try to block out certain days for one of the organizations. So on the Exit Realty side, a typical day is reaching out to some of the agents, seeing how things are going with their business, what do they need from us, trying to identify, specific opportunities to franchise brokerages in the markets that we serve, and reaching out and making outreach to those brokerages. And then additionally, I reach out to agents to see where are they in their business life, where they are from a brokerage perspective. And is there an opportunity to potentially come over to Exit Realty? And I kind of walk through the Exit Realty business model and what I call the five pillars, or what we call the five pillars, on why it makes sense to look at Exit Realty. Additionally, with that role, we're always looking for prospecting. I help out with coaching. We put some policies and procedures in place to manage and monitor and monetize our growth. So it's all encompassing. And I would say with anything real estate, it's a lot of the same, but I'm also helping with creating operational efficiencies within the organization, looking at specific tools and tech that we could bring into the brokerage to help the agents be the most successful agents, and additionally looking for opportunities for growth in the markets that we serve, managing their lead flow as well.
Love it. Seems like you got a lot on your plate, but you obviously got it down. And I like how you were talking about how it kind of correlates when with them bringing them on possibly to Exit Realty as well. It kind of just goes hand in hand there.
Correct.
So going into now industry trends, what are some major shifts that you've been seeing in the real estate industry, and maybe specifically on growth?
So there's a couple of things. It's been kind of a tumultuous year. The last 18 months in real estate. Roman, I know you follow the industry pretty succinctly, but we had a couple of lawsuits last year that kind of impacted us and how NAR is interacting with the agents. There's more transparency in the industry. Agents that want to work with buyers now have to get a specific buyer's agreement with those buyers, and even before they can show property. Overall, we're also seeing a migration to where there might be more private listing networks and the elimination of clear cooperation policy. I have my thoughts on that. I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world to go to private listings. My belief is that you want to bring it out to the most people possible. The other component that we're seeing in the industry is just in the last 3 days, we're seeing mortgage rates that went above 7. Now they're coming back down a little bit, all based on the news on tariffs. And
Yeah.
we're trying to pave a way in this industry at a time when you look at the overall economy, housing keeps on going up in price. The affordability of housing is becoming more and more difficult, and we're still not seeing enough people sell. So right now we're
Yeah.
on track to maybe sell a little north of 4 million homes for fiscal year 2025. That puts us slightly above 2024, but 2024 was like the lowest watershed year, in terms of
Yeah,
transactions. We need to be upwards more like 5 to 6 million homes sold, and we're just not
yeah,
there yet.
got you. Yeah, so talking about those tariffs, that's obviously a big thing going on right now. It's all over the news. And not to get political at all, but how do you feel like that's gonna like affect it long term, like the markets, interest rates, and mortgage rates?
Yeah, that's a great. I have a friend that works in the trading mortgage-backed securities, and he doesn't have a clue. So if he doesn't have a clue,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
bet.
have a clue.
Actually, that's
But
yeah,
I would say from our perspective, anything housing related that's having a tariff put on it that could impact the cost of building new homes will impact our industry. We need more homes being built. It needs to be in areas where you could build enough homes for the people that need homes or are looking to buy a home, and couple that with, if the interest rates and the mortgage rates stay high, it just is unappealing for anybody to go out and say, I want to put this kind of money down to buy a house.
yeah,
Because it's a high interest rate with a high home price. If it was a
yeah,
high home price without a high interest rate, you could probably get away with it. Or if it was a high interest rate with a low home price, you could probably get away with it. But both of them being high is a daunting challenge, and
yeah.
everything that happened with the tariffs, I think, kind of couples into that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So then moving on to some technology and automation stuff. Have you seen with now the surge of AI, have you seen any specific shifts towards that technology at all in your space?
In general, most of the real estate brokerages out there and the associations are trying to figure out how to bring AI into what we're doing on a daily basis. And it really started with, can AI write the description of the home that I'm selling and marketing? And they could to a certain extent, but you still had to go in and tweak it and make sure it was compliant. But now we're seeing a focus on AI, come in to handle the marketing or the back end branding for agents or
Yeah.
brokerages. So that's really coming into play. And we may get to a point where AI is handling the contracts and the agreements,
Hmm.
or playing a part in that. So from my perspective, and just like every aspect of AI, we're like here, we're like on the 5 yard line with like
Yeah.
95 yards to go. So I think where we are today and where we may be with AI in 2 to 3 years is two completely different things. What I enjoy about AI and how it really can be implemented is you really have to study it and you really have to get good at it.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it's almost a thing in itself, but agents could utilize AI to maybe become more efficient in their business and create operational processes and how they transact and how they work with their buyers and sellers. And brokerages can do the same thing
Yeah.
with AI. So there's a couple of components there. So I'm excited to see like where 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 we go with this technology in our industry. And not just our industry. I'm excited about AI in general. About,
Yeah.
are you hearing about AI in school and things like that? Or
Yeah, I mean, there's been a little, excuse me, there's been a little bit of talk about it. I mean, most of it's just about people using it for homework and stuff.
right, that's true.
Been doing a lot of stuff about that, but I mean, we talked about it today in history. Actually, yeah, we talked about it just today in history. And just kind of how it's gonna affect like businesses, and taking over jobs and stuff like that. That's kind of what the focus was on. We were just having a conversation about what we think the future would look like with that. And people will talk about how it's gonna take over the world and stuff. But I think it's pretty cool how it can like teach itself. And it's like a thinking mind. I feel like that's like a really weird thing to think about, that a computer has a thinking mind that
Yeah.
learns. But we've talked about it, yeah, in school, just to shorten that up.
And the funny thing is, just to talk about school, I have a son who's an eighth grader and I have a son who's a sixth grader.
Yeah.
They have a program in their school that the teachers can use, that they can run everything that a kid does, written dialogue, and see if it was written by AI.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
so
those AI
I'm like, that is
checkers.
crazy.
I know it is. Yeah, there's all those AI detectors and stuff
Yeah,
now that detect if it's human written, and I mean that's obviously going to help with schools so that kids can't just write all their stuff with AI. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
It is. It'll be interesting. Like I said, well, it'll be interesting to see how far AI can go in the real estate industry and how far it can go. On the property management side too, AI is coming into play because AI is now answering calls from tenants who are having issues
Yeah.
and responding to those issues on behalf of the landlord, and then pinging the landlord or the property manager and essentially buying some time for property managers, which I find is interesting as well.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like AI chat bots that can answer questions 24/7, and then like you said, taking phone calls. There's like it's pretty crazy how the AI has a voice and can respond to like your questions and stuff over the phone.
And you could use and for brokerages, they could use AI to respond to leads that come in off of the website.
Yeah,
An agent could technically use an AI bot to reach out to potential prospects
yeah,
and train it to answer the right questions and how to respond. And it sounds just like a human. So who knows where we're going to be in a year or two.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So now I'm gonna move a little bit more into the current state of your businesses that you're working with. So what's currently working really well with you guys in terms of your growth or the team structure um, in those businesses?
So I think any business that you're in, whether it's real estate or not, it's about the culture and transparency. I think it's important that everybody's on the same page in terms of where you want to be and not settling.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes all the way down to the agents, all the way on up to the brokers, to myself and Mike Wall runs the region, right? He's the regional owner
Yeah.
for Exit Realty. So we're all on the same page. And we want to be there for the brokers and agents, even though we're kind of like at an executive level, I would say. But at the same time, we know that we don't have all the answers, and sometimes the right answer comes from another broker or owner in our
Mm-hmm.
region. Additionally, I think in any brokerage, what works is having that open dialogue and open conversation and understanding what needs to get done and to be a better company and to build a strategic vision of where you want to be. In the brokerage space, a lot of times brokers, and this is why I created my fractional COO business, is many times a broker he does everything.
Mm-hmm.
From cleaning out the garbage to taking listings to trying to figure out what tech to implement. And he doesn't have that right hand person. And if you don't have that person that you can count on to get certain projects done or certain things done in your organization, it's very hard to grow. And
Definitely.
you got to make sure your internal processes are in excellent shape, the best, before you could look at any external growth or opportunities. So I would say operationally, it's having a nice clean workflow and efficient operating standard that allows you to now go out and grow and achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah. That was very well said. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think you hit it on the dot right there with that. And then what like metrics and KPIs are you guys most focused on improving across the businesses that will get you towards that growth?
The most basic KPI metric for any brokerage is the per person productivity. You want to see which agents are producing and which agents are actually doing what they need to do. So you look at that and try to figure out, is that a productive agent? If they're not a productive agent, what do we have to do to help them become productive? If they are a productive agent, is there an opportunity to get them an extra 2 or 3 opportunities a year to make them even more productive?
Yeah.
So that's one of the key KPIs, and then just looking at the trending volume for agents. Where are they? Are they ahead of where they were last year? Are they falling way behind? What can we do to help them to get to the
Mm,
next level? So those are the metrics. And then from a brokerage standpoint, we're always looking at opportunities for growth, whether it's bringing in certain agents, whether it's identifying certain brokerages that are seeing their business dwindle. Does it make sense to have a conversation with them to see if affiliating with a national brand makes sense or being
yeah.
acquired makes sense? So that's kind of what we look at in both aspects from a KPI perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So with all the tariffs and everything in the market, the high mortgage rates and everything that you've seen, are you seeing more of those agents needing the help from you guys and kind of not being able to produce as much as they would?
There's certain agents that get it done every single day, and there's other agents that need help, and we're there for them, right? We want to help them, whether it's getting on a call to walk through a deal or to
Yeah.
re-strategize and rebuild their business. And that's the key is that as agents, you're an entrepreneur, you're
Hmm.
1099 independent contractor, you're your own boss, but you want to align yourself with a brokerage or a broker owner who has an interest in you and that wants to see you succeed,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of firms out there that may just take your license to take your license, but I'm always of the belief like you want to put your license somewhere where the person who's taking your license actually cares and wants you to
Definitely.
succeed and take your business to the next level. And if you do that and you're working as an agent and you're really good with putting your time together and really having a business plan, you're going to succeed in the business. I think the challenge is that many people think it's easy and it's not an easy business and it's not an 8 to 5 business. And a lot of times people leave a 9 to 5 job, 40-hour work week and say, oh, I'm going to have more time on my hands as a real estate agent. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
That's typically not the case. You kind of lose your weekends as a real estate agent, right? So, and, there's nothing stopping a client from calling you at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night. And so you have to be cognizant of that and, just put one foot in front of the other and work towards building your business.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to what you were saying about having to be there for those agents, a lot of the things that I've heard while doing this podcast from people in the industry is that real estate's all about being personable and having relationships in the industry. So I definitely can agree with you on that point that you want to be with a brokerage that cares for you and wants to see you succeed. So I definitely think that that's definitely obviously something that you guys work to, and I applaud you for that. That's
What's
where the
what's
success is
interesting
made.
What's interesting is I was talking to a company that I was working with at the beginning of the year, and I said to the broker, I go, have you ever told your agents that you love them or that you care about them?
Yeah,
He said no. He said, and he didn't say it like that, but he's just like, no, that would never, I never even think that. But, you
yeah,
know, as a broker owner, as someone who's an executive within a brokerage or a national brokerage, it's important. It's important to let these individuals know that you care about them and that you want to see them succeed and you want to
definitely.
help them in any way you can.
Hmm.
Not every situation is a situation where you can help, but the situations that you can, it makes sense to have that conversation.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I'm gonna move now into future goals for you guys. Where do you want yourself in the exit real? Where do you want? Excuse me, sorry. Where do you want to be in 6 to 12 months from now with Exit Realty and anything real estate? What's your goals for 6 to 12 months?
So my goals on both are, the growth of the Exit Realty brand, having brought in more affiliates into the region that we're serving, having completed 1 or 2 M&A deals, and having recruited some really great agents into the brokerages that we have. And I would say the same thing for anything real estate. Like there's probably 3 components. I want to see the growth of anything real estate, both internally and externally. We're implementing a lot of new tools and tech and processes, which it's quite cumbersome, but it's going to prove dividends down the line. And
Hmm.
I would hope in that 6 months to 12 months that it's a pretty seamless transition and that
Yeah,
it really is benefiting the agents and the agents appreciate everything that we're doing, in the back end to make them successful.
yeah, for sure. And then if there was one problem in your companies, either of them today, one major challenge, whether that's operations or how you're growing, that you could fix today, what would that be?
That's a great question. I mean, and the reason why it's a great question is as a chief operating officer, we tend to we tend to find the problems, right? Even if others don't think of them as problems, we think of them as problems, and that's a little bit of a challenge. So we kind of have to sometimes get out of that mindset. But if I look at anything real estate and exit realty, it's finding the right people to align ourselves with as a brand, right?
Hmm.
In both instances, right? We want to we know what we have, but we have to find the right people that can continue advocating for us and continue to be a great representation of who we are. So that's the biggest challenge, and you're doing it in not the easiest real estate market out there, right? It's not easy, but we'll survive and we'll do good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then just to wrap it up now with my final question, I ask this in every single podcast that I have. I personally am trying to start reading books. I feel that is a great way to grow your mind, whether that's real estate knowledge, mindset knowledge, or anything financial in general. So what's been the most influential book that you've read in your professional journey, and how has that shaped your approach to leadership or business?
So I'm a pretty avid reader, but I don't read a lot of business books.
Yeah. Oh, so you just completely not
So
business?
I was, you said your history class. I was a history major in college. So I don't
Really?
know if you're a history major, but
Oh, no.
I read a lot of autobiographies. I
Yeah.
like to learn from people that have been in tough situations in the past. Um, I just read, obviously, one of my favorite books is Hamilton
Really?
by Ron Chernow.
Yeah.
That book was just absolutely awesome. And then, you know, I'm starting a book on Teddy Roosevelt, his autobiography. But,
Really?
I love seeing how others manage situations.
Definitely.
The situations that they're managing, if they're a historical figure, pale in comparison.
Yeah.
They don't compute with, my issues are a lot less. Those are the type of books that I read, because I think that history tends to repeat itself, and not that
Hmm.
we need things to happen. Understanding how people in high stress situations handle certain situations is
Yeah.
very, very important.
That's very interesting. That's a first for me from hearing for it, but I think I like that a lot. I might have to read Hamilton now to see what's that book about. What's kind of obviously it's his autobiography, but
It's the life of Alexander Hamilton, and the play was based on it, right? And
yeah,
by Ron Chernow, and he's written on other individuals as well. And there's a lot of great books out there by that chronicle the lives of some amazing individuals. And
yeah,
we tend to forget about. We're getting to a point now where we forget how great some of these people were.
hmm,
They all have their warts, right? Let's be honest. There's not any perfect human being out there. But to see how they managed and handled situations, I'll tell you, I just finished the book on the autobiography on Ulysses S. Grant. That book was phenomenal. He was the only general in the Union Army who really had a defined strategy on how to go after the South, and he
yeah,
replaced two or three generals that were just not. They didn't have that aspect of managing and operational efficiency, and that's
yeah.
what it comes down to.
That's very cool. Yeah, I might have to get into some autobiographies. That seems very interesting to me. I also do enjoy history, so that'd definitely be something I'd look into to reading for sure.
Yeah, you should. I mean, those are always good books.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
what's the best business book you've read so far?
Yeah, right now I'm currently reading The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I
Can't go wrong
haven't,
with Stephen Covey.
I'm about 100 pages in, so I haven't read much of it yet. I just started, but I mean, so far I definitely am seeing like things that I can apply to my life, like just ways of thinking and getting yourself out of your comfort zone and just starting. I recently one of the topics that was in the book was procrastinating and holding yourself back by your brain not thinking you can do something, and changing that mindset to just starting today and just going and doing that and learning. So that's one little section of the book that I currently recently read that I thought was pretty notable and something that could correlate with my life a lot.
So I'll give you two other books. So Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Have you read
Yes,
them yet?
I haven't read it, but that's something I definitely need to pick up. I've heard that from probably like four people doing the podcast. It's definitely something a lot of people have read and think is a very good book.
And then there's another book which is older, The Mind of a Tennis Player.
The Mind of a Tennis Player. I haven't heard that one.
So I grew up playing team sports. I played tennis for a little bit.
Yeah,
Always regretted that I gave up tennis. That's probably one of my regrets. But when you play tennis, if you're a singles player, you're on that court by yourself. You don't have a
yeah,
coach. You don't have anybody. It's you and your mind screws with you. Your mind is telling you, hey, you didn't hit that shot, you did this wrong. Your
Yeah.
mind is always telling you what you did wrong on a tennis court. Your mind
Yeah.
never tells you what you did right. And even though you took a shot and it hit the net, but how many things had to go right just to make that shot happen, right? You had to have the right swing, the right angle.
Yeah.
You had to make sure that the racket hit the ball. So many things went right, but your mind doesn't compute that. It's about re-triggering your mind to think about everything that goes right as opposed to everything goes wrong. Because our
Yeah.
mind is inherently there to protect us. But by protecting us, it tends to shade a little negatively.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out.
That's a very good book. It's
Yeah,
a
it
short
sounds.
read. It's a very short read.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that one out too. So I got Hamilton and the mind of the tennis player now.
Exactly.
Also, Rich Dad
And
Poor
Rich
Dad.
Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, gotta get it all done. I got a lot of reading to do.
There you go. Over and above the other stuff that you're reading for school, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that wraps up all my questions. Thank you again, Guy, for jumping on today. I really appreciate you for taking the time to hop on the podcast and spend
Of
time with
course.
me.